Welcome everyone to another episode of Listening to the Wind, IWSA's regular interview series with some of the pioneers of the wind propulsion sector. And we certainly have one of those pioneers sitting here today with us, and that's Danielle Doggett. Hi, Danielle from SAILCARGO. Thanks for coming.
Hi, Gavin. Thank you so much for having me. Really excited to be here.
Oh, I'm really looking forward to this presentation, this discussion as well. So I'll give you a little introduction of Danielle. For a lot of you, I don't think she needs an introduction, but for some of you, she will. Danielle is the founder of the emission-free cargo companies SAILCARGO Inc. and the Veer. She grew up on Canada's Great Lakes and began sailing on the brigantines St. Lawrence II at the age of 13. She worked on the engineless cargo brigantine Tres Hombres in early 2010, which defined her maritime career path. Danielle has been named by the Royal Institute of Naval Architects as one of the most influential women in the industry of the past century. She's worked on large rigging and shipyard projects with Sailmaster BV, the Peking, the Gorch Fock II, and Shabab Oman II. As captain of Ruth, flagship of Barbados, she wrote and implemented the launch plan, which is the largest ship to be launched in the history of that country, which must have been an amazing project. But anyway, we're going to hear a lot about your current projects, and maybe we'll get you back for an interview on those past projects on another day as well. So Danielle, without further ado, I'm going to hand over to you and I'll see you on the other side.
Wonderful, thank you. So I'll begin to share screen now.
That looks great.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you again, Gavin, for having me. My name is Danielle, and I'm the director of SAILCARGO Inc., which is an emission-free cargo and shipbuilding company. Oh. Okay. So while I don't need to preach to the choir, as many of us know, there are many problems with the shipping industry, from air pollution to sewage discharge, oil spills, and accidents at sea. There are many topics that really should be addressed if we want to be moving towards a cleaner future. Our answer to this is to build our flagship, Ceiba. So Ceiba is being built currently right here in Punta Morales, Costa Rica, which is a coastal community on the Pacific coast. This is a recent photo of our flagship, and you can see a Danish apprentice shipwright, Agatha, down there near the bow for scale. When she is launched, hopefully by the end of next year, Ceiba will be the largest emission-free cargo ship in the entire world. And she's doing a really great job of proving the mission, which is to prove the value of clean shipping. So this is just an interior view of the port side on the aft, with a young shipwright from Canada. And you can see these are traditional wooden double sawn frames, primarily made of Spanish cedar or Cedro Amargo. Our target products for this vessel are primarily value-added, beautiful organic products that are mostly food and have that sort of telltale narrative that makes this whole project really come to life. So we have signed letters of intent to ship cotton, avocado oil, coffee, turmeric, and many other products. In fact, we've been so successful with securing clients that this has encouraged us to launch a second vessel of the same design. So currently here at our shipyard in Costa Rica, we have 25 to 30% of the framing stock of her sister ship already drying. The sister ship is called Pitaya, and we hope to begin construction in earnest before the end of the year. So we're very thankful with SAILCARGO Inc. that we've received international awards and recognition. This is myself and my two co-founders, Lynx and John, with the Ambassador of Canada receiving a special gold medal to celebrate the 100-year relations of Costa Rica and Canada. And this is just a small slide to acknowledge some of the 250 people that have come together to help us reach this amazing reality that we live in here in Costa Rica. And our mission, our collective mission, is to prove the value of clean shipping. So now that we've kind of come to a head of being quite successful with these wooden vessels that are non-containerized, and yet we were still full of cargo. I needed to re-examine what is the problem. And here we have the same slide where we said the problem is the existing shipping industry. But I began to take a little shift and I said, potentially the problem isn't that we have these problems, it's that we don't have a solution to fix those problems yet. So instead of just looking at that, we tried to find a true solution to bring to the scale at this level. So these are some of the partners we work with for SAIBA here at SAILCARGO Inc., including Hyundai Propellers, Ad Astra, which we do green hydrogen work with, and on the other side, some of our nonprofit and other organizations. And we're bringing these teams together to try to create a solution at scale, for which we are offering this graphic. So you can see here, this is our first solution that we are presenting with a newly evolving company called Veer. So just to be clear, SAILCARGO Inc. Is maintaining operation and development of all of our wooden vessels that are less than container load or non-containerized cargo. For the record, they can carry 250 tons, which can be the equivalent of up to 10 containers. This vessel that we're looking at now is going to be specializing in containerized cargo, and the one on the screen right now will be transporting up to 100 containers. We're also examining a larger design that can be doing nearly 500 containers. So Veer is a new company, and we're working with Dijkstra Naval Architects to come up with this vessel. This one is geared to be a very strong sailing vessel, which can actually maintain up to 20 knots sustained under sail, 100% clean energy. Using the engine, she will be able to approximately maintain 12 knots, and that is a 100% green hydrogen fuel cell engine. So the primary engine here, just to underline that, are the sails, these existing Dynarig technology. We do have quite a bit of support for this vessel, including our largest client, which is Cafe William. And coffee has the biggest footprint of any beverage on the planet. As a company, we have been trying to improve on that through different means, the means that we are able to control. But regardless of what we do, the biggest problem is that it still boards the dirtiest form of transportation. The answer we found was beer. We believe that through partnership, we can use our leverage as a company to assist. That is importing hundreds and hundreds of containers from all over the world. And this is the founder of one of the largest importers of fair trade organic coffee in all of Canada. With Veer, we're beginning to examine different routes. We're overlaying existing clients that we have interest from. So such as Cafe William, where do they import coffee from? We're overlaying that with routes that will be particularly viable for such a design. And then again, overlaying that on a map where green hydrogen ports have been identified. So whether that's at a national level that the country says we will be promoting green hydrogen, such as in Australia, or if there's a specific port where there might be a private interest that is working towards that. These are just preliminary voyage plans. And again, this is the distinction for us between SAIBA and the wooden ships and Veer, is that we will be offering standardized containerized service. Just some other images here. So this is a true performance sailing vessel. So you can see by the deep keel. And these are just some of the specifications. All of these are estimates. An interesting thing we're doing with this vessel is trying to combine existing partnerships and existing technology in a new way. So I even enjoy it when people say I'm not bringing anything innovative to the table. And part of me really couldn't agree more. The Dynarig was designed around 1950 or 60. The containers were designed around 1956. And yeah, all the other parts, also the hydrogen engine has been experimented with for, I believe, don't quote me, approximately over 100 years. So we're really bringing these elements together and highlighting what the client really wants, which for us is speed and emission-free service. I think that's pretty much it. We just have some other lovely images here. And I can't wait to share more and answer some questions.
Fantastic. Thanks, Danielle. Thanks for running us through that. I mean, that's quite a journey from the forests of Costa Rica and building the wooden ships onto that. So I think we'll navigate that voyage a little bit further in a moment. So, but thank you. That beautiful pictures as always. And I'm a little bit jealous that you're over in the jungle making that, and I'm sitting here in a cold, frosty London. So, but anyhow, Danielle, you yeah. Sorry.
Stop sharing or just leave it as it is?
Yeah, I think I can. So
I can figure out how. Stop share. There you go.
There we go. Perfect. So, Danielle, let's talk about Saber and Pitaya first. I'm going to ask a really important question. What do those two names mean?
Oh, for sure. So Saba, Lynx, my co-founder Lynx, who's originally from Quebec, chose that name. And that is the name of a really special tree. It's special for many reasons, also called the kapok or silk tree. And it's a tree that we have growing around here in Costa Rica. And it is recognized by the Mayan people as a sacred tree that ties this world to the next through its roots. And it was originally made the stuffing for life preservers, life jackets, because it makes like a silky fiber.
Interesting.
It's a really neat tree. So we've got the silk tree, and then pitaya means dragon fruit, which we selected because dragon fruit is apparently a very popular fruit in Colombia, which is where she'll be hauling coffee out of.
Oh, lovely. That's lovely. Okay, that's it. I've got no more questions. No, not at all. And what wood are you did mention it, but which wood are you actually using to build the hulls with?
So we are working with, excluding the masts, we are working with 100% locally sourced Costa Rican woods. And they are technically all hardwoods that are on the ship, but they do range from how dense they are. We probably have approximately 10 species of wood. Some of the really primary ones we're using are the Spanish cedar, which is Cedro amargo, and or Cedrella odorata. And that is also used for cigar boxes. It's actually in the mahogany family. So it's not super heavy density, but it is extremely rot resistant. So we're using that for most of the frames. Another one we're using very popular on the ship is called Wapinol, and that is Dialium guianense, also called Jatoba, is a more common name in the north, which is very, very dense, very heavy, like sinks in water. And so that's being used for a lot of things like hatch combings and mast partner, where there's a mast, maybe those frames were made out of Wapinol instead. And then there'll be a range of other ones as well.
Okay, so that leads me to, and it proves to me that you know your stuff, because you knew all those names off the top of your head, which I'm very impressed by. I've got a couple of questions relating. Okay, one, why did you choose to make this from wood? And I think a lot of people would ask that. It's not a common thing. And where did you learn this craft, or have you been learning it on the job?
So why did we choose to make the vessel out of wood? One, there's a few different reasons. One, that wood is a truly regenerative and sustainable material. So as opposed to what I'm presenting with Veer using steel, that's a little bit more challenging when you want to have a holistic narrative where you're really analyzing the whole life cycle analysis. So we do have with Saba a tree planting scheme as well. And we're very cautious of how we're cutting the trees, where we're cutting them, which Costa Rica helps us with because it's very highly regulated for that.
Right.
And it's interesting, people, sorry to cut you off, people do ask all the time, they're like, why do you use wood? Isn't that old? And, isn't that out of fashion? I'm like, well, we've been using wood for a few years now as humans, kind of like, how fire doesn't really go out of fashion, like certain things that are very core to our existence. And working with trees, whether that's allowing them to help us create oxygen, or whether that is, getting fruit from them or building our homes or our vessels out of them. This is a very familiar material that we're working with here.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. And how did you learn those skills, or have you built a team around yourself with those skills?
Definitely, we have a very skilled team. I am not a shipwright. I have worked in shipyards quite a bit, more on steel ships. I've done a bit of planking and framing on some of the boats in Northern Europe, but I'm not. No, we have people from over 27 different nations have come here to contribute and bring their skills. So shipwrights, timber framers, woodworkers, joiners, boat builders, like everything to do with wood. And we have, when we're at max, our average max can be up to 50 people full time.
Wow. So that's quite a community then. And that actually brings me to the second question I wanted to ask you. You know, when you turned up in Costa Rica with this, I'm assuming the locals were very surprised at your plan to do this, but I'm making an assumption there. What was the reaction, and how has that changed from when you first arrived until today?
So when we first arrived here in this community of Punta Morales, they thought we were crazy. For sure, they thought we were crazy, because to understand the context, this is one of the poorest, financially poorest regions in all of Costa Rica. So depending what you read, my neighbors are between 70 and 90% of them live below the poverty line. So they're like, okay, there's some random foreign people. There was no tourism here, and they're living in a tent, and they say they're going to have a multi-million-dollar project to build a giant ark. Like nothing was, they're like, what? And it definitely took a few years to show them what we meant and to be able to explain it, because there's also not a lot of boat building here and none to that type of scale. But now we're the largest employer in the community. We didn't fire a single person due to COVID. We maintained and actually grew our workforce during that time. And yeah, I think they understand it now. So, when we have ambassadors of other countries coming, or we have the national news interviewing our neighbors, and they see it now for sure. And they're very supportive. Yeah, we're trying to see if we can get some of the ladies, if the cooks, if they actually want to sail on board. I'm like, don't you want to sail to Canada? And of course, many Costa Ricans do, but this community, a lot of them are like, no.
maybe around the bay first might be,
yeah,
might be like, a good start. And okay, so to just widen this out a little bit, and the discussion a little bit, and this will lead us probably into talking about Veer a bit more. But ships are great, and they create, as you rightly point out, creating jobs, creating really sustainable livelihoods going forward. But a ship without cargo is a hole in the water, basically. The business model, the attracting companies to really engage with you and come on and partner with you. I mean, that's a huge challenge, and I know it's a challenge for everybody in this industry. You seem to have been pretty successful in if I could say, selling your brand. How is can you unpack that a little bit for us? How has that journey been?
Yes, you're definitely right. And it's something that's very challenging for, as far as I know, pretty much every wind assist or clean shipping company. That's a challenge. I knew that would be a challenge coming into this, having worked on Tres Hombres, Schooner Ruth, Aventure. Like I was at some level a part of all of those projects. And so I did not underestimate that would be a challenge. And I think we worked very hard at getting the story out so that people can understand it and understand the value. So we, as you said, built the brand. We worked pretty hard to do that and tell the story. And so we have over 25,000 followers on Instagram, which is our largest one. And it just helps to do that. And so we have a professional photographer on site at all times, a videographer. And for most of the time, we had a full-time person just writing to magazines, newspapers, podcasts, everything, to try to get this into the sort of consciousness or subconsciousness of people that shipping needs to change. And so at this point, when I am able to say that both Seba and her sister Pitaya are completely full on all northbound voyages, that feels really great to be able to see that. Yeah. And we do have letters of intent going southbound. That's a bit more of a challenge. To address that challenge, we had for almost 2 years in-house cargo and logistics professionals. So two young ladies from Costa Rica, that was their specialty, and they only worked on communication within Costa Rica to see what does Costa Rica want to import. And we do have some letters of intent signed there. We're still working to solidify some of that, but that is definitely a challenge for sure.
But I guess, you know, these things, and at least I've seen this in other routes, you know, it's not a zero-sum game. It's when that link is there, people will gravitate to that, look for opportunities. But when it's not there, it's not there. So they haven't been exporting, or they haven't been looking into that market. So, but yeah, I can imagine the return trip is always going to be a little bit challenging. So taking that forward, you filled up the northern route. Southern route is building, and I'm sure it will continue to do so. And then you say, that's not enough. I haven't done enough. Now I'm going to build this huge. Well, it's not a huge vessel in the grand scheme of things, but a far larger containerized, more industrial offering, if you like. What was the trigger to do that, and why do you feel that the bigger ships? Why do you feel that there is a market for those larger ships?
I feel there's a market for those larger ships because the clients that want to ship with us on Saba, many of them say, you're only giving us a fraction of what we really want to ship with you. And a major concern that I heard was, we're going to look like we're greenwashing. Because if we're only shipping 3% of our goods on emission-free and the rest is all on fossil fuel burning vessels, it was almost to the detriment. They almost were saying, we will look like we're greenwashing, and that's going to backlash. And so it was really interesting that I was thinking, oh, well, they don't have a solution to that. You know, there are, of course, other projects that are working towards that, but to be able to offer that to them as quickly as possible and say, well, look, you can make a commitment here. Please also make the commitment to our wooden ships, especially for higher value, smaller, like less than container load products. And let's use both these designs and push the whole thing forward. And you will not look like you're greenwashing.
And also creating a network.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So, you know, in the Caribbean and, you know, in Central America, South America, North America, the need for a network of vessels, because one of the things I hear is always, yeah, I can move some goods some of the way with a zero emission ship as well, but I'd like to have the opportunity to be able to move goods, have feeder vessels coming into larger routes. Is that the way you're taking or moving this towards?
Yeah, I mean, it's really a huge push and a huge transition. So the vessel size we're looking at with Veer, which are maxing out just really basic considerations like 150 meters, that's still just a feeder vessel, right? If you're looking at the whole scale of everything. Now, if you are looking in, for example, Caribbean or Mediterranean, that might be already a viable size. But these are basically feeder vessels that we're putting out on a limb onto larger routes and proving their viability and that they are valuable. And I hope to work and push forward larger designs that are completely emission free. But really what we're doing is kind of dipping our toe in that industrial area. And same like with Saba, what we want to do is prove the value of clean shipping. And once that's proven, things are going to fall into place. You know, more larger and larger companies see that they can add value to that. And so I do anticipate there will be larger vessels, and, you know, I anticipate the other shipping companies that are more traditional at this point will recognize that value.
And it's interesting because a couple of things you touched on in your presentation. You know, we the last time we met in person was at COP26 up in Glasgow, and a couple of the resolutions or announcements that were made there really do lend to what you're saying. I mean, there was the clear declaration of zero emissions intent by quite a few cargo owners, I think including IKEA, I think Amazon was involved there, really pushing for zero emission shipping, and soon, actually earlier than the industry really can move that. and also the green corridors announcement, which was an interesting one, primarily around fuels, but then you're going to be needing hydrogen fuel for the vessel as well. So it looks, to me, it looks like that there are some movements within the industry and within the cargo owners that follow along those pathways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I
so you must have taken quite a bit of heart from that.
Yeah, well, I announced Veer for the very first time publicly at COP26, and I did not know how it would be received because it's still not a massive vessel. But I felt I do feel very confident about what I'm presenting in the design of the vessel. But again, I didn't know how it would be received. And the response I received was overwhelming, like overwhelmingly positive, but it evoked a lot of emotion, and everyone was looking at it, everybody. And it really caught the attention. And I think I can just feel like that there's the electricity in the air and something is going to go. And I mean, we receive cargo interest every single day. We have people writing to us, whether those are small or large, but I absolutely feel that anyone who's not shifting towards a green solution for whatever their sector is, they're behind the wave.
Yeah, no, I think that momentum, the ball is rolling. It needs to pick up pace. We need to spread it wider. But I do agree. I see quite a lot of synergies within the wind assist and the primary activities.
Just one thing to jump in. I wasn't sure. I'd never been to something like COP26, which was such high level policy, financiers, government, and coming in as relatively small private sector from Latin America felt kind of out of place. But what I realized was that people will be telling us policy, you're never going to get that, or this is policy, you have to wait for the IMO and the incentives from the banks and the law and the bylaw, and basically like it became this cumbersome mess of you can never do it. And I realized that basically we're taking the same stance, but it's not intentional, but it is, as innovative companies such as Uber or Airbnb that said, we're going to create something so great and so disruptive, and the market is going to want it so much, the government can keep up. And, and they'll follow suit and they'll tax us, or they'll put regulation or exemptions or whatever. But basically, if we're going to offer something so good that the market and the environment and the people, they all want, those things will fall into place. And that's basically what we're going with here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, this, it's the same with any sort of innovation development. You can incrementally change, or you can make, you reach tipping points, you make big steps forward, but it takes first movers to do it. And you're certainly cutting a niche there for yourself as a first mover. The other interesting thing that you said there, and about innovation is you actually said, I welcome people that don't say this isn't innovative, this stuff's been around. In a sense, wind propulsion, it's pretty much the oldest way of moving a vessel, other than a paddle, and probably that was developed when the guy put the paddle up and put his shirt on it and caught the wind on it. So in a sense, it as an energy source, it isn't innovative at all. It's been done forever. But to bring all of those things together, there's some innovation there. But then to actually do it, I think that's an important step forward. You got to bring it together, and then you've got to find the routes and the cargo owners that will support it. And that is that is an innovation.
Yeah, it's something I thought about because I was rejected from presenting at the Innovation Forum at COP26 or something because they said you're not innovative. And I didn't mind, but I kind of laughed. And I realized that, I'm going to get some people disagreeing with me here, but I believe that lately what I've seen is a little bit too much focus on innovation and a little bit too much focus on research and development, R&D. And not that you don't need those, I mean, you do, but how many Gavin, you can say this, how many designs, proposals, prototypes, thesis studies have we seen, the both of us, over the past decade, and they're not on the water. But every year there's a new thesis coming out, or a new study and a new innovative technology that they do one of them, and that's it. And for me, that kind of gets a bit tiring. Like, we actually don't need innovation. Last year's thesis was great. We should just use that. Like, let's just do that. No, and so I'd like to see it come to fruition.
Indeed. And I think it's, when you see, with the technologies, I mean, they're variations on themes that we've seen for, the Flettner rotor is 100 years old. The Walker wing sail, 34, no, maybe 50 years old now. A lot of this is, soft sail, for sure. The Dynarig system, as you mentioned, in the 1960s. These systems are not new, but the materials and the way that we can use them, I would say in the last 10 years has exploded. I mean, they're incredible materials, the designs, and the facilitation, the weather routing, the satellite, all of that stuff's coming together as a perfect storm.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And now we just need the cargo owners to believe it.
Yeah, and I think that's why I'm really kind of almost smile to myself when I can say, no, we're not bringing hardly any innovative technology to the table. And that should actually give people confidence. If we want to have the vessel insured, if we want to show the lifespan of the Dynarig, we can easily look at the yachts Maltese Falcon and Black Pearl and say they've never pulled the masts out in 15 years. They've literally sailed through hurricane force winds. So we can have that. But really, one thing, just if I can jump into it, is so we look at the evolution of sail, and we look at when sail basically was no longer used commercially, was around, say, 1930s, which with the flying P-liners such as Pamir, Peking, and them, they would go around Cape Horn, and that stopped something around 1930s. Basically, working sail came to a halt at that point. Basically, everyone divested from working sail and went over to, of course, fossil fuel and engines like that. But it's interesting because sail did keep evolving, whether it was in yacht racing or private yachts or what have you. And basically what I'm trying to do now with Dijkstra is take that and go back almost 100 years and say, let's bring this technology that we have for racing and bring it back to working sail and kind of bring those two worlds back together. And so I think that is innovative in that way.
No, indeed. And I think the tools are in the toolbox now,
exactly.
Which maybe they weren't there 20, 30 years ago, or it was a much harder ask. But I think also, you've got policy drivers, you've got, it's not a factor yet, but soon there'll be a price on carbon. Hopefully it will be a higher price than a lower price. But all of those drivers are starting to line up, I think. And, that can only signal a positive to your project. Now, I'm a little conscious of the time. We've been chatting away there. I've got one question for you. Okay, so you build and launch the first Veer ship. Vision that out to, say, 2030, 2035, maybe even further, 2040. Where do you see your company and your vision going? And also, where do you see wind propulsion in general being, say, in that decade, the next decade, 2030 to 2040?
So I'll see our wooden ships having still 60 plus years in their life that they will be running and working. And we would definitely hope to have many vessels of the Veer design out there. We've engaged with the architect to start with 6. So that's our goal with that. And basically, I hope to have pushed the industry so far by that point that I will not be able to predict where we're at. I hope that we'll have given so much investment and power into emission-free cargo, and I love sail, but all emission-free cargo, that the research and development and innovation has taken us somewhere that we can't even really predict today. But I really hope to see it at that point on a pretty much a mass scale.
Right. So we're talking thousands, if not tens of thousands of ships out there.
Well, the fleet right now is approximately 50,000 boats, and they're all going to be replaced pretty much by that time, the majority of them. So I would hope that they would all have considered at least some sort of wind assist or something at that point, because they will have recognized the value, and the infrastructure around it will be there to support those cargo owners and shippers making that choice.
I hope you're right, Daniel, and I think you are. But anyway, that's that because I'm on an optimistic Monday. But anyway, now I'm going to ask you a few short, sort of quick fire Q&As. Okay, what is the biggest barrier to realizing that vision today? If you can only select one barrier, what's the biggest one?
I don't know. Maybe it's no, it's just that to do something properly, it takes time. It's not a barrier, but yeah, processes take time.
So delay or time lag is a barrier.
Yeah, well, with this company, we're at Veer and SAILCARGO, we're pushing a whole new type of team, infrastructure, words, conversations with cargo clients, everything. So we're building everything. And to build that huge base and establish a new norm takes time.
No, indeed. And what is the greatest misconception that people have of your project or wind propulsion in general that you find?
I've actually identified this for myself. What is the biggest misconception? And I fully just simply embraced it on the concept that the customer is always right, which they think the cargo needs to be there super fast, and they want the average speed of the vessel to be super fast. And I think to myself, when I'm having these conversations, you don't even really know the speed of the boat that you put your container on, or like how long it waits in port when there's a bottleneck, or when it waits to refuel. Like, you don't even really know the speeds. But the client really wants the boat to be fast. And when we're working with emission-free and a performance sailing vessel, there is absolutely no reason that we might not embrace going super fast. And so with Veer, I said, yeah, let's try to go 20 knots. The yacht version of Veer, which is Black Pearl, has reportedly hit 35, which is crazy. This is not a yacht, but there's no reason why we shouldn't try to have a performance vessel going faster. Besides, it's what they want.
Okay, interesting. And life cycle analysis, you touched on the sustainability side of things. I think I already know the answer to this question, but have you done a sort of full life cycle analysis of the certainly the Sabre and Pitaya vessels, but also of the Veer system?
Yeah, so just to be honest, to do a full life cycle analysis is extremely in-depth and extremely time consuming and energy consuming. We've done quite a bit of analysis, including tracking how much fossil fuel is burnt in the trucks when we go to pick up wood. Like, we're doing all that, but I cannot say that we've completed that life cycle analysis because we are waiting on a lot more information. But we've fully assessed every part that we can and identified how can we make it more sustainable. So with the wooden ships, that's pretty easy. Plant more, only like harvest sustainably, and ensure proper maintenance for the longest lifespan possible, up to 100 years easily. And now when we are engaging, because we're more in the startup phase now with Veer, we're looking at steel and saying, how can we do that? And one of the biggest commitments we've made, there's two, is we want to use green steel, which is produced by green hydrogen, which can reduce the carbon footprint up to 90% of steel. And then also committing to how is that end of life looking, right? So are we going to be comfortable with selling our vessel to a third party, reflagging it, renaming it, driving it onto the beach of a third world country, and simply taking it apart there with what the International Labour Organization calls some of the most dangerous practices in the world? Probably we're not going to be comfortable with that. So we've already engaged and committed to doing a study on how can we recycle these vessels in a more sustainable way. But the debate is raised. I was just having this conversation with the Dijkstra team. I said, I would really like the steel ship to have a 100-year lifespan, because these flying P-liners like Peking and Pamir, some of them are still operating. Krusenstern is in the Russian Navy. And they said that it may or may not actually be more environmentally friendly. And then I posed the question, in 35 years from now, do you think we'll still be using steel at an industrial level? Or will some of these really innovative composite or organic materials be making their way into commercial shipping? And yeah, I don't know. They're using some really interesting stuff now. Yeah, I don't know.
But sometimes, you know, that is the way of things, is as long as you're asking the questions, you may not always have all the answers. If you're asking the right questions, then I think you're on the right path. So that's really good to hear. I've got two more very quick ones. What has been the biggest challenge to date that you and your team have had to deal with?
Probably facilitating growth fast enough. So whether that's team members that want to join, investors that want to invest, cargo people that are lining up, we cannot fill the demand fast enough.
Right. Oh, that's not a problem. That's not a problem.
People may have noticed that we actually closed SAILCARGO's investments for several months because we couldn't handle the demand.
Right.
So please join our team if you want.
Well, that was the last question I was going to ask you, actually. Are you currently recruiting?
Yes, we are currently recruiting, and on every single type of job that you can have. So if somebody finds themselves more drawn to Veer and the industrial processes, or woodworking, or regenerative farming, we're expanding pretty much in all directions right now. And just growing on what we've already established. So we're always accepting applications. And please, okay, I'll make this little call out. If you're interested in Veer, follow us. Our biggest social media right now is Instagram. So veer.voyage, and just check that out. And when we have information, it'll be there, as well as the website.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Well, I'm gonna hand it over to you, because I'm going to give you another minute to make your closing statement. So that was a semi-closing statement. All good. But what should people take away from what you've said today?
I would hope that people take away that we don't need to wait for policy, nor do we need to wait for some innovative technology that doesn't exist. Is that we can do this, even if it's building on starting with feeder vessels and getting larger. We can do this today, and there are the clients and investors lining up to do it. So if we want to see shipping change, we just have to go and put our head down and pull in the harness together, and we can make that happen today.
Sounds perfect. Great message. I agree. I completely agree. And I'll be in Costa Rica as soon as I can get out of London. Wouldn't that be nice?
That would be great.
Yeah, one day. I'll come down for the launch. So
that sounds.
Yeah, for sure. Danielle Doggett from SAILCARGO Inc. Thank you so much for joining us today and just giving us a taster of your project. I'm sure there's going to be lots more developments, so we'll have you back maybe in 12 months' time and be talking about the next steps and the next stages. So thank you very much.
I'd love that. Thank you. Okay.
Thanks.
Bye,
and to the audience, thank you for joining us on Listening to the Wind. And I'm sure that Danielle will be more than happy to answer any questions if you have those. And of course, if there's any questions about the wider wind propulsion world, IWSA and myself are always here to answer those questions. So thanks very much, Danielle, and enjoy the beautiful weather and the wonderful country of Costa Rica, and the best of luck with the project.
Thank you. Adios. Pura vida.